Hey everybody, I wanted to chat real quick about solo self-found builds for Delirium. Maybe what makes generally a solo self-found build good, and the real answer to that is it needs to be good without any uniques. So it's hard to do a lot of different builds that have kind of best in slot uniques, but there are certainly some that you can do without. What I've been planning on doing for Delirium is some sort of spellcaster. 90% of the time. But given that this is group self-found, I'm a little bit more flexible and willing to drop into melee or ranged or weapon-based builds a little more so. Just because with 3 or 4 other people playing, we've got access to more weapons dropping, more rares and unique weapons dropping, and we'll be able to start that as a party a little bit more easier and a little bit more easily in level together. But there's about 4 main builds that I've been looking on starting. The first one that I really want to do, and I've been wanting to do for a while, is Brands. And I know they nerfed Brands, and I have a hard time figuring out how to make this build not garbage. With even decent gear, we're currently only hitting... we do have 2 Brands on the enemy, so about 150 to 180, depending on certain multipliers. We're only hitting about 180,000 single target DPS, which is kind of unfortunate. This build is currently very maxed out on skill points. We don't have the most amount of life. This one doesn't have defensive gearing yet, but we don't have a great increased life multiplier. We do have a decent amount of ES and a lot of increased mana with Mind Over Matter. So what would need to carry this build is the new mana supports. This is a Hierophant that goes the Brand nodes, the Arcane Surge node, and the mana-based nodes. To kind of make the most out of that, this one needs to get carried pretty heavily by the mana support gem, the Archmage support, and Arcane Cloak as a defensive option. I might very well start with this. I really hope that the mana supports are good, and I'd really be looking forward to that. This build does have easy access to a jewel socket. That just doesn't have a ton of points for it, so we'd have to drop something somewhere around the tree here. But this is one I've been wanting to try out. The playstyle should be good for Delirium. You can pop your Brands down off screen, or not off screen, but as the monsters start to appear, you can recall your Brands around you, and that should be okay, but scaling monster hit points might be difficult for this build to deal with. And with solo self-found in this league, it looks like you're going to want decent defenses, but a way to scale up damage as you go through maps. Dominating Blow is really good at that, but I want to do something a little bit different for this group self-found. The next build that I want to look at is a Chaos Trickster, likely focusing on Blight and maybe Soul Rend, possibly Cast when channeling again, using Essence Drain and Contagion most likely to clear, rather than Bane, using just Bane to apply curses. The reason that we want to go with this is getting power charges and frenzy charges will help us scale our damage as we go through a map and clear packs. Essence Drain is great for kind of clearing packs as you go. You can drop it and leave it. Same with Bane. But then you can use Blight as a very powerful single target option. Our Bane right now is doing 0 damage, but our Essence Drain with decent amount of links is 165,000 DPS with a couple of other improvements elsewhere. And then our Blight is 39,000 per stack, which is 20 stacks. So we actually get to hit, brain fart, 800,000 single target DPS with Blight. And our defenses, again, our life's a little low here, but our energy shield should be significantly better with a shit ton of extra evasion rating from Trickster. This prolonged pain node would be absolutely fantastic to take. If we don't end up going with the Blight channeling, then we drop the Swift Killer node because we won't have it against single target, and then we take prolonged pain, which would give us some extra skill duration, and then 20% more damage over time is obviously fantastic. So this build looks like it'll be good. Soul Rend is always great to clear with 2. As you can just kind of go, drop it behind you, drop it ahead of you with greater multiple projectiles, and it'll kind of seek. And this build as well is very flexible. The downside is that, again, we could go up to these sockets over, these nodes over here, but we don't have access to a ton of different cluster jewel options. So that's an option. This one, the one that I'm most likely going to go with here, is a Vortex / Cold Snap build based around chills, slowing enemies, providing defense. Using temporal chains, the chill from Vortex, and a bunch of increased chill effect and aspect of the spider to slow enemies before they get in on us to provide us with a lot of extra defense there. Swapping in to Chaos Inoculation, it's decently easy to craft Energy shield gear. We probably shouldn't be using Shade of Solaris on this, but even without that, our DPS is decent because we can swap in a different one. Rhyme Gaze is fairly easy to find, but it's also not mandatory. And then these Venomous' Weaves just stand in for literally any item we find with Aspect of the Spider, which especially with the Intervention the way it is, it's really easy to find Aspect of the Spider. And then aside from that, it's just Vortex, Cold Snap. The damage should be even higher because it's not calculating Bone Chill from Cold Snap effectively, but we should be able to chill enemies quite significantly. And then your last few nodes are optional. Malediction is nice, so you can apply both Frostbite and Temporal Chains without having to have like a Duidri's Ring, which again is harder to find in Solo Self-Found, but also the extra Curse effect, and then the Curse Explosion and the reduced damage from enemies is really nice. So this should all in all be just a nice defensive-ish build that does decent AoE damage, but it has a hard time scaling up and ramping as you progress through a map, and the AoE is decent, but it's not actually huge for our Vortex or for our Cold Snap for that matter, though Cold Snap expands over time, and so against larger hordes of monsters that might be a better option. But that's kind of the third main one. And then the final main one that I've been looking at is Herald of Agony. I know it got nerfed, I know it's been busted for forever, I don't really want to play it because it's kind of busted, but the advantage of this build is that since we go Scion, we get extra passive points, and then we can pick, you know, these jewel nodes here. God, I hate that this is elemental damage. And we can pick up this jewel socket here. We don't have a great amount of increased defenses. I mean, basically at this point we're just running a flat life pool, which is real awkward, but we do have options to go up to here. We do take Raider and Necromancer to provide us with better Frenzy Charge sustain so that we can apply poison faster, and then we could possibly even start from the Ranger side of the tree and pick up, actually that's probably not a bad idea, is head over to Ranger and go pick up Phase Acro or something like that. And this is still like a level 94 build here, which is not awful. Pick up a bunch of evasion rating, drop some of the shittier nodes up here, possibly even the Spectre nodes and these nodes up here. And then we can go in for evasion, life, and then we've got our Herald of Agony hitting about 500,000 Hail Spike DPS. Again, I've never run Herald of Agony before, so I don't know how good the AI is. But aside from that, using just a Snake Bites are fairly important. They basically save you a link on your barrage so that you can hit max poison without needing to do a 5 link or without losing life gain on hit, which is fine. Like, you could drop that or drop faster attacks. But Snake Bites are fairly common, and then Quill Rain is just a stand-in for literally any fast attacking bow. Or again, like, you could go Cyclone with Fortify. There's a bunch of different options for a build like this, so all of those sorts of things are, yeah, like Bright Beak Cyclone or Cold Iron Point, but again, it's harder to find a Cold Iron Point in Solo Self-Found. In fact, I think I've only ever dropped one over the course of like 4 leagues, so probably like Cyclone with Bright Beak is another option. And this build seems good, like it seems really easy. You don't need any specific gem setups really, just a big Herald of Agony, fast attacking bow or weapon, and then some way to poison consistently, and then you get to run life gain on hit, which should give you a bunch of extra sustain. I mean, like, this one seems pretty good, but this is a decent option. Herald of Agony has always been a decent option. Again, we've got like 186% increased life. We've got access to a couple different jewel nodes on the tree to abuse some of the cluster jewels, because there are certainly some good cluster jewels for Herald of Agony. And yeah, I mean, this one seems like an interesting option at the very least. I'm not sure how certain I am about it. And then the final build is just a very simple Impale champion, using kind of whatever skills you want. This one's currently using Cyclone, hitting about almost 1 million DPS when you add in the Impale. This isn't the fork, so it doesn't include Impale. But 93 build with 400,000 DPS, 160% increased life is not great, but we've got a shit ton of extra evasion rating, armor, and fortify, of course. We've got banners, you've got adrenaline. So, I mean, if you don't have adrenaline, you lose a significant amount of DPS, but you just, you know, blasphemy, blood, magic, curse yourself that way. And then currently this build is running Disfavor, but just replace that with any sort of decent two-handed axe. Sinvictus Metal is not too hard to find, but again, this is the sort of thing that I'd rather do in kind of a trade league where I can guarantee that I'm getting a Sinvictus Metal. And then the advantage of Disfavor is that it was super cheap last league. I'm expecting it to be super cheap again this league, but You could always run Sinvicta's Metal or literally anything else, and you're still hitting a comfortable sort of 500,000 DPS, which isn't amazing, but it's also not awful. This is certainly sort of the least viable build from my experience. I would say probably the two best builds would be the Herald of Agony and the Chaos damage over time one, just because they both keep you at a distance or keep you relatively safe. So the one I'm likely going to go with is the Vortex Cold Snap or the Brand one, just because those are what I want to play, things that I haven't gotten to play too severely. Some of the new nodes, actually I forgot about this, some of the new notables are really cool for chilling skills, and I think I kind of want to go into those. And there are a bunch of new brand notables as well. So these ones both get to take good access of the notables. The chill tree has the best access to cluster jewels, whereas the brand tree, you know, has to kind of make its way up to the top east corner, and it doesn't even normally take that node. You could actually take these nodes up here and take another cluster jewel here, and that's actually probably better, but this one's really stretched for points as is. And this one relies a lot on the mana supports. If the mana supports are good, this build's probably going to be good. If the mana supports are poo, this build's probably going to be poo. Whereas the chills is just, I mean, it worked for people before, and it will work again. And then if you really don't like the chills, you're already going occultist, you basically just swap these two nodes into these two nodes and swap your cold damage nodes. You respec like 20 or 30 points, and all of a sudden you're doing chaos degen. So you might prefer to do Trickster, but I think occultist is better if you're running Bane. If you're running Bane, this build would be fantastic, just because the enemies exploding, dealing a quarter of their max life as the enemy's life scales up in Delirium. This might be even better. So you could certainly try an occultist Bane build where you go for the enemy explosion and scaling chaos damage, so they're dealing like half to 75% of their life as chaos damage, and that could be awesome. I don't know. These are things that I want to try out. I have a feeling I'm going to try out a bunch of builds in Delirium, but yeah, I hope you guys like post in the comments below if you have any cool ideas for solo self-found builds for a league which seems like you're really going to want scaling damage. Yeah, which can be kind of hard to do on a solo self-found build, and something where you really want to be able to kind of AoE half the screen as the monsters start to close in. Like something like Fireball would be awesome for this, but I just worry that the Ignite Prolif wouldn't deal enough damage. So anyways, yeah, aside from that, I mean, thank you guys for checking in, and I'm really excited for Delirium League. I hope you guys are all too, and yeah, bye-bye.